being that it's Monday morning, pandemic's still with us, right? I didn't miss something over the weekend?
No, I just checked the news during the break. Still going on.
Still going on. And still coming on with us on Mondays, as has been his habit throughout the entire pandemic, and we are grateful for it, is our good friend, Dr. Dennis Norem from Mercy Health. Dr. Norem, good morning.
Good morning to you guys.
You back in these parts dealing with this weather, or you out someplace warm?
No, I'm back here enjoying the March weather.
Yeah, your tone would indicate you're really enjoying it.
That's funny.
What can I say? You know, I did get a little reprieve, so I can't complain too much.
I was going to say, plus you'll appreciate it when you go back out to Arizona again.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one more snow. You've been around here for a while. You can handle it.
Yeah, you've seen a few hundred of these come and go as they have. Let's get into the mix this morning. One of the things going on is AstraZeneca issuing a statement this morning defending their COVID-19 vaccine after some countries have raised concerns about blood clots in vaccine recipients and called for a temporary suspension.
Yeah, very interesting. Several European countries have paused their vaccination with the AstraZeneca vaccine because of blood clots and low platelet counts, which cause a person to bleed if they have low platelets. Interesting to see what the cause and effect is there. As we've discussed in the past, the COVID virus itself causes blood clots, which has been one of the major causes of death. So there may be a connection, and it's too soon to tell, but the good news, I think, for us in the United States is we're not using that vaccine. And there's been no evidence that the Moderna, the Pfizer, or the Johnson & Johnson have a similar problem.
Yeah, Ireland announced yesterday they would temporarily suspend distributing the vaccine out of an abundance of caution, according to Reuters. Move was announced after reports of blood clotting in some recipients in Norway. Now you got AstraZeneca. They're from Cambridge in the UK. Said more than 17 million people have been vaccinated with shots in the European Union and UK. And their quote has been no evidence of increased risk of pulmonary embolism, deep vein thrombosis, or thrombocytopenia in any defined age group, gender, batch, or particular country.
So it could be somewhat coincidental. It could be, too, that these people had asymptomatic illness, and this was the consequence of their illness. As, again, we know COVID causes blood clotting. But I think it's not unreasonable for them to suspend the vaccine program briefly and kind of look at this issue just to make sure that it's not related to the vaccine.
You mentioned we don't use the AstraZeneca here in the States. Do you know why we don't? And was this possibly available to Americans down the line after some further testing?
Well, my understanding, and I guess the main reason is it's not been approved here yet in the States. We only have the 3 approved vaccines, and I'm not sure why AstraZeneca did not get approval. I believe they are in the process of getting approval through the FDA. The emphasis here in this country was on the messenger RNA vaccines early on, as it seemed like they would be a situation where we could get them to market a little quicker because of the process and the fact that they were, even though they're international companies, they were mainly, here in the United States. So the emphasis were on those at the beginning. So this is an interesting situation with the vaccine, and it'll be interesting to see how this turns out.
So, yeah, at this point, we're just going with an abundance of caution is why we're seeing some of the countries dial back on this a little bit rather than, this has definitely been shown to have big problems. We're going to pull this back.
Oh, absolutely. I think the few number of cases indicates that there just isn't a clear situation of cause and effect, and there's going to need to be a little more research done before you can tell whether this is truly a problem.
Vaccines are, they're ramping up big time here, and we've talked about it last week, but it just seems the more the vaccines available to our general public, we're finding out this second shot, especially the Moderna that I've been hearing, and the Pfizer as well. This second shot is really kicking some people's butts. It's only for a day or two, but they're bouncing back. Has that been what you? We've just been hearing what people are reporting, what have the studies been showing about people on this second shot being waylaid for about a day or two?
Well, I think the Moderna, you mentioned Moderna, I think it's pretty clear that people are more likely to get a reaction with the second shot, especially with the Moderna shot for some reason. And it may just be the combination of what's in the shots, a little more irritating. And yes, people are going to get some reaction. Some of the time, it still seems to me to be the minority of people that I talk to that get a significant reaction. Almost everybody complains of a little bit of a sore arm for a day. But I think what you're talking about is people getting the muscle aches, maybe a low-grade fever, just feeling kind of lousy for a day or so. But again, I think that's a small price to pay to be protected against COVID. And again, the numbers on long-term safety are really impressive with these vaccines. We're well into vaccinating we're up in around 60 million people, and we're just not seeing any kind of severe reaction. And I'm still not aware that there's been a death reported directly related to one of these vaccines here in the United States.
So nobody should be should put off that second dosage just because they're concerned about picking up some bad feelings for a day or two, right?
Absolutely should not. And again, we've mentioned in the past that the shingles vaccine was notorious for that. I had a reaction to this. But again, no reason to put it off. Get your vaccine.
Yeah, then the availability seems to be doing nothing but going up and up and up and up. Looking at, let's see, CDC, over 92 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines administered in the U.S. from December 14th through March 8th. During this time, they received 1,637 reports of death among people who received the COVID vaccine. CDC and FDA physicians review each case of report of death as soon as notified. CDC requests medical records to further assess reports, blah, 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 blah. A review of available clinical information, including death certificates, autopsy, medical records, revealed no evidence that vaccination contributed to patient deaths. CDC and FDA will continue to investigate reports of adverse effects, including deaths, and report them.
Yeah, my numbers were a little off. We're a little further ahead, but that's absolutely right. I think people need to be reassured. And as it's become more available, we need to get people vaccinated. It's discouraging to read articles that some of the prison guard population is refusing vaccines. We're having problems with long care nursing home type facilities getting staff vaccinated. There's a lot of hesitancy out there still. We need to get these people vaccinated.
And then we talk about it every week, but 60 Minutes did a big story on it. And that is the mutations of this virus. Where are we at with that? Anything wildly scary on the forefront that just popped up?
I don't think anything wildly scary. I think there's still a concern about that South African variant with the certain type of mutation, which seems to be a little more resistant to the vaccine. Hopefully we can get ahead of the game, get enough people vaccinated that'll kind of keep that from spreading across the country. So far, it's not a huge problem, but the variants are a big concern. One of the interesting things about the variants is that in order to be more contagious, they are more aggressive about there's little spikes attaching to our receptors in our lungs. But the UK variant seems to be the one that's most contagious, but doesn't seem to be much more dangerous in terms of its ability to make you sick. As we go down the road, they think the variants are going to kind of poop out in the sense that if you become more resistant to the vaccine, they'll have less ability to attach. In other words, the vaccines affect the ability of the coronavirus to attach to the receptors in the body. Well, if a variant becomes more resistant to the vaccine, it becomes less able to attach to the receptors in the body. So there's some thought that we'll kind of see the end of these variants in terms of new ones popping up, that we're probably going to be stuck with what we're dealing with now, and down the road they'll become less of a problem. But there is still a concern. We just don't know. As we said many times, this virus is still teaching us.
Well, and I'm looking at a report from the Associated Press this morning where somebody just comes out with, will the coronavirus ever go away? The answer basically in a nutshell is nobody knows for sure. Some believe it will eventually ease from a crisis to a nuisance like the common cold. That would happen as people build up immunity over time, either through infection or vaccination. Other viruses have followed a similar path. And they also say the 1918 pandemic could offer a couple of clues on this. CDC says that a third of the world's population became infected with a virus which originated in birds. Eventually, after infected people either died or developed immunity, the virus stopped spreading so quickly, later mutated into a less virulent form, which experts say continues to circulate seasonally. The only virus we've ever eradicated is smallpox.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point. I think one of the reasons we were able to eradicate smallpox is it didn't really have the ability to mutate. The virus remained a single identifiable virus with very little ability to mutate. I think the research now, which is what the companies are trying to do, is come up with a multi-variant vaccine. So instead of a vaccine to a specific coronavirus, the vaccine will actually have multiple different viruses in the vaccine. This will be similar to what we have with pneumonia vaccine. You've heard of the Pneumovax 23, which is a vaccine against 23 different variants of the pneumonia bacteria. So they're working on a combination vaccine down the road that we could add several different variations of the coronavirus in one vaccine.
And just one more clarification on these mutations, and you've been very clear when we've talked to you about this. There's a lot of these questions maybe better posed to a virologist, but I know you're doing your best at what you can. So these mutations, would you classify these as more of the last gasp effort of the coronavirus to spread, or is this kind of the second stage of what could be the same kind of effect that we've seen over the last year of these new mutations?
I think it's the natural history of viruses. We see it with flu. We see it with several different kinds of viruses. It's just their natural ability to do this. As the body becomes immune to one version, the virus mutates to a different or slightly different version, which may make it more likely to survive. So this is just sort of the natural history of most viruses to mutate. And coronavirus has been, I think, pretty typical.
And Dr. Before we let you go, I just want one take on something we briefly touched on last week, and Joe and I had further fleshed it out during the week, is this CDC study that finds about 78% of people who were hospitalized for COVID or died from it were either overweight or obese. Nothing says you should lose a couple of pounds like a headline like that.
Oh, absolutely. This ability to correlate, I think that was the Italian study. They could actually correlate the effect of the vaccine now with the BMI, which measures, obviously, your body mass index and obesity. And they found a pretty strong correlation between obesity and the lack of response to the vaccine, which indicates that is a major risk factor.
So, yeah, if you've been toying with the idea of maybe, a few pounds less would be good for you. But like I said, a headline like that simply just blares out, okay, let's watch that diet a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I think it's been more of a problem as we've been shut inside and people haven't been outside exercising the time of the year. Gyms have been closed until recently. No question, I think we've all been gaining a little bit of weight. So That's another plug.
You talking
Get
about
out
me?
there
And no one was looking at you.
Okay, all right,
no,
fine.
we were just
well,
talking.
I can't see you. I can't see you, Joe. But
Dr. Norem, as always, we appreciate the time. We appreciate the expertise. And if you're game, we would love to discuss this once again next Monday.
oh, absolutely. And go Illini.